10,000 silver-robed nobles filled the great hall of the obsidian court, and not one of them was breathing. The only sound was the slow creak of the golden chain that held the sunblade above the Empress's neck. 3 more seconds, maybe 4. Then the chain would release, the blade would fall, and the last ruler of the Velthari Imperium would be gone forever. I was the only human in the room. My name is Adrian Cole. I had been sent to this world as an ambassador, with very strict orders to stay quiet, stay polite, and under no condition get involved in local matters. I was about to break all 3 of those orders at the same time. The Empress stood on a black stone plinth in the center of the hall. Her name was Usmara Valethorn. She was young, not even 25 in human years, and she had 4 silver eyes that did not blink. Her wrists were bound with copper wire behind her back. Her long hair had been cut short, which, in her culture, was a mark of deep shame. She was not crying. She was not begging. She was simply looking forward, as if the blade above her head was a small and boring thing that did not interest her at all. I knew she was innocent. 3 nights earlier, a fire had started in the west wing of the palace. I had been trapped in a side corridor, choking on thick smoke, certain I would never see my family again. Usmara had found me. She had pulled me out through a service passage with her own hands. She had not told anyone about it because the Empress of the Velthari is not supposed to be running through smoke to save foreign diplomats. She had simply done it and then walked away and then gone back to her duties as if nothing had happened. 2 nights after that, her father, the old emperor, was found gone in his study. The official word was poison. And the man standing beside the plinth right now, reading the charges in a smooth and careful voice, was Grand Vizier Korvath. Korvath had started the fire. I knew this because I had been in the wrong corridor at the wrong time, and I had heard him give the order with my own ears. I had the recording in the small silver pin on my collar. The charges ended. The silence in the hall deepened. By Velthari law, this was the single moment when any voice could be raised in defense of the accused. In 1100 years, no one ever had. To speak was to share the guilt. To speak was to share the fate. I stood up. The sound of my boots on the black stone floor was the loudest sound I had ever heard in my life. 10,000 heads turned. 10,000 pairs of silver eyes locked onto me. Korvath's smooth face went very still. He had planned for everything in this room, but not for this. I said one word. It was a word from the oldest form of their language, a word I had found in a dusty legal book 3 months ago and memorized just in case. The word was Velara. It meant, in the simplest translation, I dispute. The sunblade stopped moving. A priest in red robes ran forward and struck a hammer against a great bronze bell. The chain holding the blade locked into place. The ceremony had been paused. I kept walking. My legs did not feel like my own. I had no weapon. I had no army. I had one small recording pin and a head full of their old laws, and that was all I had brought to this fight. Korvath recovered his voice first. The human has no standing in this court. I have the standing of a witness, I said, in his own language. My accent was not perfect, but it was clear enough. And by the law written in the stone under your feet, Grand Vizier, any witness may stand as voice for the condemned. A low sound moved through the hall. It was not quite a gasp. It was the sound a room makes when everyone in it has just realized that the rules have changed. You are not of our blood, Korvath said. The law does not ask for blood, it asks for witness. I was present for the events in question. I claimed the right of voice. I was quoting, word for word, from a case that was 1140 years old. I had read it twice. I hoped I had read it correctly. Korvath's mouth opened, then closed again. He turned to the 7 judges seated behind him, each one wearing a silver mask. The oldest judge nodded once. The law had been claimed. The law had to be honored. Korvath's smile came back slowly. It was a very thin smile. Then, human, you understand what you have accepted. If the Empress is found guilty, you will stand beside her. Her fate will be your fate. I understand. You understand that no witness has ever succeeded in the trial of the 7 questions. You understand that the questioner is chosen by the court. You understand, and here his voice grew very pleased, that I will be the questioner. I understand all of it. I did not dare look at the Empress. If I looked at her, I might lose what small courage I had managed to gather. I stared straight at Corvath instead, at the careful patterns on his silver robe, at the small golden pin that marked him as the highest servant of the empire. I thought about my daughter, who was 6 years old and who was sleeping on Earth right now, and who would probably never know what her father had done in this strange and beautiful hall at the far edge of the known galaxy. Then begin, I said. The oldest judge lifted a black rod and struck it softly against the floor. The sound was small, but it carried. 2 servants rushed forward and cut the copper wire from the Empress's wrists. She did not rub them. She did not move at all. She still had not looked at me. Then slowly she did. Her 4 silver eyes found my 2 brown ones. There was no relief in her face. There was no hope. There was only a very small and very careful question, and the question was this: are you sure? I was not sure. I had never been less sure of anything in my whole life. But I let the side of my mouth lift, just a little, the way my grandfather used to when he was about to do something my grandmother would not have approved of. Her eyes changed, just for a moment, just enough. Corvath raised his hand. The first of the 7 questions was about to begin. "Witness," he said, and the word in his mouth was like a knife wrapped in silk. "Tell this court before all the nobles of the Imperium what your species is worth." The blood left my face. It was the oldest trick in their legal books, and I had not seen it coming. He was not going to question me about the Empress. Not at first. He was going to question my right to stand in this hall at all. He was going to make me defend all of humanity before he allowed me to defend her. And if I failed this first question, the voice would be stripped from me, and Usmara would be gone before the next bell rang. I took one slow breath. I thought about every human I had ever known. The good ones, the foolish ones, the loud ones, the quiet ones. I thought about my grandmother, who fed stray cats on her front step every morning. I thought about the doctors who had stayed awake for 2 days to save strangers they had never met. I thought about the small things my people had done, the kind words, the hands offered to people who had fallen. I opened my mouth to answer. And that was when the great bronze doors of the court burst open, and a messenger ran in, covered in gray ash, and shouted a single word that changed everything in the room. "Flee!" Corvath's head snapped around. The nobles rose to their feet. The oldest judge struck his black rod against the floor for silence, but no silence came. I looked at the Empress. The Empress looked at me. And very quietly, in a voice only I could hear, she said, "Adrian, they are not here for me. They are here for you." The messenger's word hung in the hall like a stone dropped into still water. Fleet. Every noble in the room understood what that meant. Ships had crossed into Velthari space without permission. Ships that did not belong to the Imperium. Corvath moved faster than I had ever seen him move. "Continue the trial," he snapped. "The ships are a matter for the War Council. They are not this court's concern." The oldest judge hesitated. Then he lifted his black rod and struck the floor again. The bell rang. The trial would continue. I understood what Corvath was doing. If the fleet was human, as Usmara had guessed, then he needed me silenced before Earth could reach me. Every second now was a second he could not afford to lose. "Witness," Corvath said again, his voice sharper now. "Answer the question. What is your species worth?" I looked around the hall. I looked at the silver robes, the silver masks, the silver eyes. I looked at the Empress on her black plinth. Then I looked back at Corvath. "My species," I said, "is worth nothing." The hall went very quiet. "My species is not worth anything, Grand Vizier, because worth is not a thing a person is given at birth. Worth is a thing a person builds, choice by choice, day by day. I cannot tell you what humanity is worth. I can only tell you what one human did 3 nights ago in the west wing of your palace." Corvath's eyes narrowed. You speak of things not under question. I speak of the events in which I was a witness. The law allows this. Would you like me to quote it again? The oldest judge raised one gloved hand. Continue, witness. I turned so that I was no longer speaking to Corvath. I was speaking to the nobles, to the judges, to the whole great black hall. I had learned a long time ago, in my first year as an ambassador, that the secret of speaking in a foreign court was to forget the foreignness and simply speak as a person. 3 nights ago, I said, a fire began in the West Wing. I was trapped inside it. I was choking. I was certain I would go that night and my body would not even be sent home to my family. And then a pair of hands found me in the smoke, and those hands pulled me out and I lived. I paused. The nobles were listening. Even Corvath was listening, though I could see his jaw tighten. The hands belonged to the Empress of the Imperium. She did not tell me her name. She did not ask for my thanks. She pulled me through a service passage and left me with a guard and walked away. I did not know at the time why the fire had started. I know now. I reached up slowly and unpinned the small silver badge from my collar. I carry a recording pin. It is a standard item for human diplomats. It activates when voices are raised near me. On the night of the fire, I was in a lower corridor trying to find my way back to my rooms. I was not supposed to be in that corridor. I took a wrong turn. And because I took that wrong turn, the pin recorded 3 voices, one of which belonged to the Grand Vizier. Corvath's face had gone the color of old paper. If it pleases the court, I said, I offer the recording as witness evidence by the law of the 7th tradition. The oldest judge held out his hand. I walked forward slowly and placed the pin in his glove. He gave it to a priest, who carried it to the great resonant stone at the center of the hall. The stone began to sing. That is the only word for it. Velthari recording stones do not play sound the way our speakers do. They vibrate, and the air around them carries the voice as if the person were standing in the room. Corvath's own voice filled the hall. Let the fire reach the east stairs. The ambassador's rooms are on that floor. If the human does not survive, the Empress will be blamed. Her sentimentality is well known. It will not be difficult. A second voice answered, and the old emperor. The old emperor is already arranged. By the time the smoke clears, the throne will need a steady hand. My hand. The stone fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. 10,000 silver-robed nobles stood as still as carved statues. The 7 judges behind their silver masks did not even turn to look at each other. They did not need to. Corvath finally spoke. His voice was very calm. The recording is a forgery, a human trick. The stone tests its own truth, Grand Vizier. You know this. Every noble here knows this. A false recording would have cracked the stone. The stone had not cracked. It glowed a soft, steady blue. Corvath turned to the guards along the wall. Take the human. Take the Empress. The court is dismissed by reason of foreign interference. The guards did not move. They looked at the judges. They looked at the stone. They looked at me. I was still the voice of the Empress, and the law was very clear. No one could lay hands on the voice during the trial. If they did, the entire legal tradition of the Imperium would be broken, and no judgment rendered in the next century would be trusted. The guards did not move. Corvath took one step forward. I said, take them. And then, for the first time since she had been brought into the hall, Empress spoke. She did not shout. She did not raise her voice. She simply spoke in the old tongue, 3 words that I had never heard said out loud before in my life. The nobles nearest to her turned white. The guards near the plinth dropped to one knee. What did she say? I whispered to no one in particular. A priest near me answered without thinking. She has called the oath of old blood. Every Velthari present who still carries loyalty to her father's line is bound to defend her life, or lose their own honor forever. Half the guards in the hall turned and faced Corvath. Run with me, Empress said in plain trade speech, and this time she was speaking to me. I ran. She was faster than I expected. Her long legs ate up the distance between the plinth and the side arch of the court. I followed, my boots skidding on the polished stone. Corvath shouted behind us, but his shout turned into chaos as his own loyal guards met the guards of the old blood. I did not look back. The side arch led into a narrow servant passage. The ceiling was low, built for a species a full foot shorter than either Usmara or me. We both ran hunched, shoulder to shoulder. I could hear her breathing. I could hear my heart in my ears. "Where are we going?" I said. "Down the lower vaults. My father had loyal men there. If any still live, they are in the vaults." We turned a corner. A pair of Corvath's guards stepped out of a side door, weapons raised. Usmara did not slow. She went low under the first weapon, came up inside the man's guard, and struck him once at the base of the neck with the heel of her hand. He folded. The second guard hesitated for half a second, which was half a second too long. She caught his arm, twisted, and used his own weight to send him into the wall. Neither one got back up quickly. She kept running. I followed, trying very hard not to think about how many centuries of training it must have taken to produce a young woman who moved like that. We reached a spiral stair. The stone was worn smooth in the middle of each step by countless feet over countless years. We went down. The air grew colder. The lights grew dimmer. The sounds of the court above faded, replaced by the distant, deep hum of the palace's old machines. At the bottom of the stair, a single figure waited. He was old. That was the first thing I noticed. His silver hair was cut short, like a soldier's. He had 3 deep scars across his face, one of which had cost him an eye, and he had not bothered to replace the eye with anything but a plain black patch. He wore a gray coat over a silver tunic, and he carried a long, curved blade in his left hand. When he saw Usmara, he went down on one knee. "Your Radiance." "Rise, Thurix, there is no time." He rose, his one good eye found me. It narrowed. "And this? This is my voice." Thurix looked at me for a long moment. He did not seem impressed. "He is the one the old emperor adopted," Thurix said. It was not a question. It was not quite an insult either. It was more like the statement of a fact he did not enjoy admitting. "I am Adrian Cole," I said, "and I am going to need a ride, sword captain." Thurix made a low sound that was almost a laugh. Almost. "The skimmer is ready. It was always ready. Come." He turned and walked into the darkness of the vault. Usmara followed. I followed Usmara. Somewhere far above us, the court of the obsidian hall was tearing itself apart, and somewhere high above that, a fleet I did not yet understand was moving through the night sky of a world that was not mine. I had saved an Empress, or I had signed away my own safety forever. In that moment, running through the cold dark under a palace that was no longer safe, I was not entirely sure which. But I knew one thing: I was not going back. The skimmer flew low over the dark plains of the southern continent for 11 hours. Thurix piloted. Usmara sat in the back, her eyes closed but not sleeping. I sat in the middle seat and watched the red dust rise behind us in the moonlight. No one spoke for the first 3 hours. Then Thurix said, without looking back, the fleet was human. I thought it might be. 3 ships, small ones. They did not engage. They have taken position in the outer belt and gone silent. Your people, I assume. Not my people, not officially, a friend. A friend with 3 warships. A friend with 3 freighters. The ships only look like warships because the paint is the same gray. Thurix made that low sound again, the one that was almost a laugh. "You are a strange man, Adrian Cole." "I have been told." By the time the sun began to rise, we were descending into a narrow valley in the middle of a long range of red mountains. At the bottom of the valley sat a monastery. It was very old. Its walls were made from the same black meteor stone as the obsidian court, but they had been softened by centuries of wind and rain. The roofs were silver and bright in the early light. The brothers of the long silence. Thurix said, "They take no side in any war. They will not turn us over to Corvath. They will also not lift a hand to help us." "That will have to be enough," I said. The monks met us at the gate without surprise, as if they had been expecting us for days. Perhaps they had. Their order had strange ways of knowing things. They led Usmara to a small stone chamber with a window that faced the sunrise. They led me to a chamber across the hall. Thurix refused a chamber entirely and said he would sleep in the courtyard, which was his habit. I did not sleep. I sat on the floor of my chamber with my back against the cold stone wall and looked at my hands. They were shaking. I had not noticed them shaking in the palace. I had not noticed them shaking in the vault or in the skimmer. But now, in the quiet, they would not stop. There was a soft knock at my door. Usmara stood in the hallway. She had changed out of the silver execution robe and into a simple gray tunic that must have belonged to one of the monks. Her cut hair was hidden under a soft cap. Without the jewelry of the court, without the paint of ceremony, without the 4 silver rings on each hand, she looked like any young woman who had not slept enough in a very long time. "May I come in?" "Of course." She sat on the floor across from me. For a while, neither of us spoke. The sunlight crept across the stone between us. "Why did you speak, Adrian?" "I told you, because I was a witness." "You could have been a silent witness. Your government told you to be a silent witness. Your career depended on being a silent witness." Her silver eyes found mine. "Why did you speak?" I thought about that for a long moment. Because no one else was going to. She looked down at her own hands. They were also shaking, I noticed, though only a little and only at the fingertips. My father used to say that the Velthari had forgotten how to speak. He said we had become a species of silences. I did not understand him. I thought he was being old. He was right. Yes, he was right. She paused. Your kind owes mine nothing. Your species has been on the edge of this empire for less than 50 years. Many of the nobles voted to refuse your embassy. I was one of the few who argued to accept it. Do you know why I argued for you? No. Because I had read the reports of your history and I had noticed something. You break many things, you make terrible mistakes. But when a disaster comes, when a flood or a sickness or a hunger reaches even a people you do not like, you send ships. You send food. You send doctors. You do it even when it costs you. Even when it does not help you. My father asked me once what kind of species would behave that way. I told him a young one. A very young one, still foolish enough to believe that kindness is strength. My grandmother would have liked your father. I think she would have. Her mouth moved in something that was almost a smile. Thank you, Adrian Cole, for speaking. I know what it cost you. It has not cost me anything yet. It will. She rose to her feet. At the door she paused. Thurix says the old guard is still loyal. He says there are pockets of resistance in the outer provinces. He also says the 3 great houses of the east have already bent the knee to Corvath. And there is something else. What? Corvath has declared that when he is crowned, the first act of his reign will be the removal of all human presence from Imperium space. All embassies, all trade missions, all of your people, Adrian, every one of them. I felt my hands go still. How many? 240 at the last count. He will not just send them home. No, he will not. She left. I stayed on the floor. I stared at my hands, which had stopped shaking. The shaking had been replaced by something colder and steadier. I stood up and walked to the narrow window. The sun was fully up now, painting the red mountains gold. Somewhere in the belt above this world, 3 gray ships were sitting very quietly, waiting. I pulled a small black disc from the hidden pocket of my coat. It was a secure line. It had not been authorized for this purpose. Using it would end my career. Using it might end a great many other things too, depending on which admiral answered. I pressed my thumb to the disc. It took 3 minutes to connect. Then a voice I had not heard in 8 years said, "Adrian, is that you?" I smiled for the first time in 3 days. "Hello, Ellis. Do you have any idea what time it is on Earth?" "I do not, and I do not have time to care. Ellis, I need a favor." There was a long pause. I am listening. I told him in short, clean sentences everything that had happened. The fire, the old emperor, the trial, the recording, the fleet already in orbit, the plans for the humans in the Imperium, the Empress in the next room trying to rest on a stone bed in a monastery at the edge of a civil conflict. When I was finished, Ellis was quiet for a long time. Adrian. Yes. You understand that what you are asking me is not small. I understand. You understand that if this goes wrong, I will be court-martialed, and you will be disavowed, and there will be a short article in the news service on Earth saying that a human ambassador got involved in local politics and paid the price. I understand. You understand that the answer should be no. I understand that too. Another long pause. I will be there in 70 hours, one ship, a freighter, no weapons on the outside. But listen to me, Adrian, I am bringing something. I am bringing something that the old emperor gave me for safekeeping during his state visit 6 years ago. I never told you about it. He asked me not to. Alice, what did he give you? Himself. I do not understand. You will 70 hours stay alive. The line went dead. I stood at the window for a long time, holding the small black disc. 70 hours. I turned from the window. I had work to do. I found Usmara in the monastery's courtyard at sunset. She was standing very still in the middle of a pattern of white stones, her eyes closed, her arms at her sides. Thurix stood to one side, watching her with something that was almost pride. She is praying, he said when I approached. I will come back. No, she is finishing, wait. I waited. After a moment, Usmara opened her eyes and stepped out of the stone pattern. Adrian, you look like a man who has a plan. I have the beginning of a plan. I do not know if it is a good one. I was hoping you would tell me. We walked together along the outer wall of the monastery. The sun was setting behind the red mountains, and the whole valley had gone the color of old copper. Thurix walked a few paces behind us, because Thurix did not believe in being out of reach of his Empress. Tell me your plan, she said. I want you to speak. I spoke this morning, you were there. No, I want you to speak to your people, not the nobles, not the houses, the common people, the farmers, the miners, the dock workers on the outer moons, the ones who have not seen an Empress in their lifetimes and would not know your face if they passed you on the street. She stopped walking. That is not how a Vilthari ruler addresses her subjects. I know. My ancestors would be ashamed. Your ancestors lost the common people 1,000 years ago. That is why Corveth could take the throne in one night. He did not take it from you. He took it from them. They did not notice because no one ever talks to them. If you go on every common channel in the Imperium in plain language with no silver robe and no silver crown, and you tell them the truth, something will happen. Maybe not enough, but something. She was silent for a long moment. Adrian, do you know how many common channels there are in the Imperium? A lot, I imagine. 37,000, in 180 languages. Then we had better start with the big ones. Thurix made his almost laugh sound behind us. Usmara turned to me. The last light of the sun caught in her 4 silver eyes, and for a moment she did not look like an empress at all. She looked like a young woman who was about to do something her whole civilization had forgotten how to do. Write it with me, she said. Write what? The speech. I do not know how. I have only ever been taught to speak in the high tongue. You will have to help me put it in the common one. We worked through the night. I do not mean that poetically. I mean we sat on the floor of my chamber with 3 oil lamps burning, and we argued and rewrote and argued again until the sun came up. The monks brought us hot root tea every 2 hours. Thurix slept for exactly 90 minutes, as was his habit, and then came back and listened, and occasionally grunted when a sentence was too long. At one point, around the 2nd hour before dawn, Usmara put her head in her hands. This does not sound like me. It does not sound like the Empress. It sounds like you. There is a difference. I am the Empress. You are also a person. People would rather follow a person than a crown. I know that sounds simple, but I have been alive for 39 years, and in all of those years, I have never seen anyone follow a crown for long. I have seen many people follow other people. She looked at me for a long time. Your species is very strange, Adrian. Yes, we are. Near dawn, we had something that worked. It was 7 minutes long. It had no high tongue in it at all. It began with the simple words, "My name is Usmara. You do not know me, but I know you. I have sat at your tables in disguise when my father sent me to learn the lives of the provinces. I have eaten your bread. I have heard your songs. This is what I am. This is who is speaking to you now." We recorded it in the monastery's small communication room. A brother who specialized in long-range broadcast helped us push the signal through a relay on one of the outer moons, slipping around the main state channels entirely. Within an hour, the recording was on every common channel in 17 provinces. By noon, it was on every common channel in the Imperium. By evening, there were people in the streets. The first city to react was a mining town on the western continent called Hollowstone. A crowd of about 6,000 workers gathered in the main square and refused to return to the mines. They were not shouting. They were not waving banners. They were simply standing in silence, facing the governor's house. It was, Thurix told me quietly, the oldest form of Velthari protest, a form so old that most nobles had forgotten it existed. By the next morning, there were similar gatherings in 11 other cities. By the morning after that, 23. Korvath responded the only way he knew how. He declared a state of emergency. He declared the recording a forgery. He declared Usmara a traitor and Adrian Cole, the human ambassador, an enemy of civilization itself. When I heard that last one, I laughed out loud. Thurix looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "I am sorry," I said. "It is only that I am going to frame the decree someday if I live." "If you live," Thurix agreed. In the quiet hours between the crisis and the next crisis, something strange happened between Usmara and me. We did not fall in love. I want to say that clearly because the people who write about these things always expect that. We did not fall in love. What happened was older and stranger than love, and I do not fully have a word for it even now. One evening, she found me teaching a young monk how to play poker. I had brought a pack of cards in my travel bag, and the young monk had been curious, and we had been playing for small stones for an hour. Usmara sat down across from me. "Deal me in. You do not know the rules. Then teach me." I taught her, badly. I have never been a good teacher of cards, but she learned very quickly, and within 20 minutes she had taken nearly every stone at the table. The young monk watched her in quiet amazement. "How are you doing this?" I said. "I can see your face." "Everyone can see my face." "No, I can see your face. My people evolved from pack hunters, Adrian. We read each other's expressions the way you read books. Your face tells me everything your cards are. I thought you knew." I did not know. Your species is a terrible bluffer. I have been told. She smiled fully for the first time since I had met her. It was a very small smile, and it did not last, but it was there. I have kept that smile in a quiet part of my mind ever since. On the third day after the broadcast, Korvath made his move. We were in the monastery's main hall, watching the latest reports from the cities when Thurix's head came up. He had heard something. I had not. A moment later, a young monk ran in out of breath. "Ships." Thurix was already moving. "How many?" "6. They are descending fast. They are painted in the colors of the inner fleet." "Get her out." "Thurix." "Get her out, Adrian." I took Usmara's arm. We ran for the lower garden, where a second skimmer was hidden under a grain tarp. The first sound of the ships came just as we reached the skimmer. It was a deep, low sound, the sound of old engines slowing into hover. The second sound was the sound of the monastery's upper tower being struck. The third sound was a sound I will not describe, because it does not deserve to be described. Thurix appeared at the skimmer's side just as I got it running. He was bleeding from a long cut above his left eye. His one good eye was wild. "I have bought you 3 minutes, go. Come with us. I have bought you 3 minutes, go." Usmara's hand tightened on my arm. "Thurix. Your radiance, take the throne back, break the sun blade. I will find you if I can. If I cannot, then the blade was mine to carry and I have carried it well. Go." She went. I have never seen anyone grieve the way Usmara grieved during those first 10 minutes of our flight, and I have never seen anyone stop the way she stopped after that either. She put her sorrow in a small box inside herself and closed the lid and locked it. Later, she told me she would open the box again. Not now. We flew east. I did not know where we were going. She did. 15 hours later, we came down in the shipyards of the Southern Loyal Fleet. A small, worn fleet, much smaller than Corvath's, but loyal. The old admiral in command, a woman with white hair and a scar on her lip that she had refused to have healed, met us on the landing pad. She went to one knee when she saw Usmara. "Your Radiance." "Rise, Admiral. We have a short time and much to do." The Admiral rose. She looked at me. "The human." "I am Adrian Cole. I know who you are. Half of my pilots are wearing your name on their collars now. They think it is lucky. I am not sure it is lucky. Neither am I, but there is no time for that." She led us into the command center, and in the main screen, already in orbit above our heads, was a single, unmarked gray freighter. Usmara turned to me. "Is that your ship?" "That is my friend's ship." "One ship, Adrian, one." I smiled for the first time, in what felt like a very long time. "Usmara, you do not know what is inside it." The freighter's name was the Quiet Margaret. It had been a cargo hauler for 22 years before Ellis had bought it with his own savings and kept it as a private courier. It carried no weapons. Its hull was so thin that a small fighter could have cut it open in seconds. And yet, sitting in the display of the shipyard's command center, it felt to me like the most important object in the whole system. Ellis himself came down in the first shuttle. He was a little grayer than I remembered, and a little heavier, and he was wearing a plain gray coat over civilian clothes. He walked straight across the landing pad to me and hugged me, which was not his habit. "You look terrible, Adrian. You look old." "I am old. Who is this?" "Empress Usmara Veilthorn. Your Radiance, this is Captain Ellis Bran of Earth." Ellis, to his credit, bowed correctly. He had clearly practiced. "Captain, my voice tells me you have brought something." "I have, Your Radiance." He unslung a small case from his shoulder. It was an ordinary medical case, the kind used to transport sensitive biological samples. He opened it on the command table. Inside, protected by foam and wrapped in a cool blue field, was a single glass cylinder. Inside the cylinder was a small pattern of silver cells that seemed to turn slowly in the light. Usmara went very still. "That is a memory print," she whispered. "Yes, Your Radiance." "That is a Vilthari memory print, which is not to be taken, not to be kept, and not to be made outside of the presence of 7 masked judges." "I'm aware of that, Your Radiance. My father made one, in your care. 6 years ago, during his state visit to Earth, Your Radiance. He asked me to keep it for him. He said that if the day ever came when it was needed, his daughter or her voice would know to ask me. He made me swear 3 oaths. I have kept all 3. Usmara put a hand on the edge of the command table, as if to steady herself. I had never seen her look unsteady before. "What is on it?" "I do not know, Your Radiance. I never opened it. It is keyed to the blood of the Velthari royal line." Usmara looked at the small pattern of silver cells for a long time. Then she looked at me. "Adrian, my father knew this would happen. He prepared for it. He made this for me, and he gave it to a human captain because he did not trust his own nobles to carry it safely." "Yes." Your species. Sometimes I think your species is the strangest gift my people have ever been given. We try. She took the cylinder in both hands. Her thumbs, one on each end of the glass, touched the silver activation plates. The pattern inside flared gold. And then the voice of the old emperor, whom I had met only twice in life, filled the command center. It is not my place to write down every word the old emperor said. That recording is now a public record of the Imperium, and anyone who wishes to hear it can. What I will say is this. He named the fire. He named the poison. He named Corvath. He named the three great houses of the East, and he named the smaller families that had bent to them, and he named the gold that had been paid and the favors that had been promised. He named every part of the plan against him, because he had known about it for 3 years and had been gathering the evidence in quiet, and he had known he would not be able to bring it before the court in person. At the end of the recording, he spoke directly to his daughter. Usmara, if you are hearing this, I am gone and you are in danger and the empire is in the hands of a man who is not fit to hold it. You will be tempted to answer him in the old way. I ask you not to. You will be tempted to rule in anger. I ask you not to. The blade in the obsidian court is older than our house. It has ended too many of us. Break it if you can. Let the silence end. I have always loved you, your father. The recording finished. The silver cells in the cylinder went still. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Usmara put the cylinder back in its case, closed the case, and set her hand on top of it. Broadcasted. The Admiral blinked. Your Radiance, that recording is sacred. Playing it on public channels is. Broadcast it on every channel in every language now. The Admiral went to work. It took 40 minutes to clear every frequency. We sat and waited, not speaking, watching the screens. Somewhere far away, Corvath was preparing for his coronation. It was to take place in the Obsidian Court at noon. He had, by all reports, already sat on the throne once in a small private ceremony to make sure that there could be no question of who held it. At 10 minutes past 10 in the morning, the recording of the old emperor's voice began to play across the Imperium. By 10:30, the streets of the capital were full. By 11, 2 of the 3 great houses of the East had issued public statements withdrawing their support from Corvath. The 3rd house went silent, which in Velthari politics meant the same thing. By 11:40, the inner fleet had split. 3 of the 6 admirals loyal to Corvath had turned their ships around. At 11:50, a priority message arrived from the Obsidian Court. It was from Corvath himself. He had requested, by the oldest law that still remained to him, a trial by blade. Usmara read the message twice. He wants a duel, she said. With you, Ellis asked. No, he cannot directly challenge me. The law forbids a claimant to the throne from meeting the current ruler in personal combat. He is asking me to name a champion. Thurix would have done it, Ellis said quietly, if Thurix were here. There was a silence. Usmara turned to me. Usmara, I said, I am not a warrior. I know what you are. I am a diplomat. I have 40 hours of combat training and I failed most of it. I know. If I lose. I know, Adrian. She did not name me to me. She named me to her admiral. Prepare my voice to fight, he is the one. The admiral looked at me. Her scarred face held no expression. He is going to be broken, your Radiance. No, he's going to win, prepare him. The admiral took me away. We had 3 hours. I will not tell you everything that happened in those 3 hours. Some of it was Velthari breathing techniques, which I was bad at. Some of it was sword drills, which I was worse at. Some of it was the admiral, very quietly, showing me the 7 common openings that a Velthari duelist of Corvath's school would use, and the small, not quite honest things that a clever opponent could do to make him overextend. He has never fought a human, she said. I know. He will assume you move the way we move. You do not. I know. Use that, do not try to be a Velthari, be what you are. I am a diplomat. Then duel him like a diplomat. I did not understand that at the time. I understand it now. At 1:15, a shuttle took me to the Obsidian Court. Usmara came with me. Ellis came because Ellis said he would not miss this for any amount of money, and Ellis had a very quiet way of making it hard to argue with him. The admiral stayed with the fleet because someone had to. The court was full again. 10,000 silver robes, 10,000 silver eyes. Corvath stood in the center of the hall on the same black stone where Usmara had been bound 3 days earlier. He wore a silver dual coat. His blade was the old curved style, slightly shorter than the standard, which told me he was fast. He was smiling. He thought he was smiling at his own victory. I walked to the plinth. I was not smiling. I had a standard issue service blade from the fleet, which the admiral had personally sharpened for me, and I had no armor beyond a thin gray coat because I had refused heavier armor. I had learned in my short and not very good training that armor slowed me down more than it helped. The oldest judge stepped forward. He lifted his black rod. By the law of personal honor, the claim to the throne shall be tested in single combat. The challenger is Corvath of House Vaelthrim. The voice names her champion Adrian Cole of Earth. Are both parties prepared? I am, Corvath said. I am, I said. Begin. Corvath moved first. He came in fast, on the opening the admiral had warned me about, the one that looked like a simple overhead strike but turned into a sweep at the last moment. I had been warned. I was still almost too slow. His blade missed my shoulder by less than a finger's width, and the wind of it moved my hair. I did not try to counter. I stepped back. Then I stepped back again. He smiled wider. The human runs. The human is a diplomat, I said. He came in again. Another opening, this one faster, this one meant to end the fight. I moved sideways, used my greater height against him, and tapped his blade with mine only to redirect it. I did not try to harm him. I did not have the skill. The nobles around the hall began to murmur. They had expected a quick end. They were getting something else. Corvath attacked again, and again, and again. Every time I moved just enough to survive. Every time I gave him a small piece of what he wanted, but not the piece that would finish the fight. I was not winning. I was not losing. I was wasting his time, and I was making him angry. After the fourth attack, he paused, breathing harder than he should have been. Fight, coward. I am fighting. You are running. I am also running. Both things can be true. That was the sentence that made him lose his control. I had been watching him for 3 days in every recording Thurex and the Admiral could bring me. I had studied his temper. His temper was his weakness. Every Velthari noble of his school was trained never to show anger in public, and Corvath had trained longest of any of them, and his pride in that training was a brittle thing. He came at me in a straight run, his blade high, his form abandoned. It was the overextension the Admiral had told me to wait for. I stepped inside his reach where his longer weapon could not help him. I did not try to wound him. I turned, took his wrist with my left hand, put my foot behind his ankle and sent him down hard on his back on the black stone. His blade skidded across the floor. I put the tip of my service blade at the base of his throat, where the old dueling rules required the yield to be signaled. The hall went very still. I could have pressed. That was what he had expected me to do. That was what any Velthari duelist of the old school would have done. That was what he himself would have done 3 days ago in this very hall with Usmara on the stone. I did not press. I stepped back. I lowered my blade. I turned to the plinth where Usmara now stood. Your Radiance, the claim is yours, the judgment is yours. A sound went through the hall that I will never forget. It was not a cheer. It was something older and deeper. It was the sound of a people watching a moment they had been told for 1,000 years that they could not have. Usmara walked to the black stone. She looked down at Corvath, who was breathing hard on the ground, and whose careful, beautiful coat was now dirty. Corvath of House Vaelthrim, You have been judged by law, by blood, and by blade. You will not be ended. You will be taken to the outer provinces. You will work the mines at Hollowstone until your hands are old. You will speak to no noble. You will wear no silver. You will know every day that you are alive because the voice of the Empress is a human, and humans do not believe in the old silences. Take him. The guards took him. He did not resist. I think he had already gone somewhere inside himself that no one could reach. 3 days later, Usmera Veilthorn was crowned in the Obsidian Court. She did not wear the high crown of her grandmothers. She wore a simple band of silver that a smith in Hollowstone had made for her in 2 hours. She did not stand on the black plinth. She stood on the floor at the same level as the nobles, and at the end of the ceremony, she did something no empress had ever done before. She walked to the great golden chain that held the sun blade. She took the blade down. She carried it to the center of the hall, laid it on the stone, and with a small iron hammer that had been made from the tools of the miners of Hollowstone, she broke it into 3 pieces. The hall was silent. Then the oldest judge, who had served under her father and her grandfather, lifted his black rod and tapped the floor once. The silence had ended. That night Usmera gave me a new name in the old tongue, Valeren, the one who disputed. No one who was not of the Velthari had ever held that name before. There is no good human translation. The closest word we have is kin. My government recalled me within the week. I was both decorated and reprimanded, which is the most human outcome I could have hoped for. I was given a medal, and I was also given a formal note of disapproval, and my next posting was delayed for a long while. I did not mind. I had other things to do. Ellis went home. He was not court-martialed. The Imperium, in a diplomatic note that would become famous in its own small way, formally recognized his ship, the Quiet Margaret, as the vessel of the Seventh Silence and granted it permanent free passage through Imperium space. Ellis had the document framed. It hangs in his kitchen to this day. Thurix survived. I do not have space to tell that story here. It is his, not mine. But he found us in the end at the shipyard 2 weeks after the coronation, with his one eye and his long scar and his almost laugh. And when he saw Usmera, he went down on one knee in the same way he had in the vault under the palace, and she pulled him up and put her arms around him, which was a thing no empress had done to a sword captain in 600 years. On my last morning on the Velthari capital world before my ship lifted for Earth, Usmera and I stood on a balcony above the Obsidian City. The sun was rising. The streets below were full of people moving to their work. Some of them were wearing small silver pins on their collars, the shape of a simple open mouth, which I was told had become a fashion among the younger workers. It was a sign, Usmera told me, that they had decided to be the kind of people who would speak. Adrian, will you come back? Yes. You do not know when. No. But you will come back. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. A thin wind moved through her cut hair which she had not grown out. She had decided, she told me once, to keep it short for the rest of her reign as a reminder. Why? I thought about it. The answer was not easy, but it was simple, which is not the same thing. Empress, I never really left. That is the trouble with humans. Speak to us once and we decide we belong. She laughed. It was the second time I had heard her laugh. It was louder than the first, and it carried out over the balcony, and for a moment every person in the street below looked up, though they could not have heard it from so far. They looked up anyway. They knew the shape of their empress in the morning light, and they knew the sound of her when she was happy, and that was a knowing they had not been allowed to have under any ruler before her. Somewhere in the archives of the Velthari Imperium, there is now a law that says silence is not consent. They call it the Cole Provision. I did not write it. A young woman with 4 silver eyes did, but I like to think I helped her find the words. That is where my story ends. Or more honestly, that is where one part of it ends. The rest is for another telling on another day, when the tea is hot and the hour is late, and you are willing to listen to an old diplomat tell you, one more time, About the morning he stood up in a room full of silver robes and said one word. The word was Velara. The word was enough.